Deborah, you're in a different place now.
Yes, and this is gonna work.
Can we hear you?
Can you hear me?
What? I'm just kidding. I'm joking.
I saw that was a lot of confusion. Sorry about that.
I keep expecting you, Deborah, to there's a curtain behind you, and I expect it kind of open up and there'd be like a chorus line or some amazing Broadway production.
There is a river and a trail.
It's about as Colorado of a chorus line as you can get. All right. Looks like it's time. We'll wait one sec, get Charlie on.
I saw Charlie.
Hi, Ingrid.
Hi. Oh. Struggling here.
Okay, Ryan, let's take a roll.
Mayor Godis.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Wellman.
Present.
Counselor Kell.
Here.
Counselor Hershey.
Present.
Counselor Wusso.
Present.
Counselor Stepp.
Yep.
We have a quorum.
All right. I'll lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Is there any agenda changes or conflicts for this evening's agenda or conflicts of interest? All right. Seeing none, I'll turn over to citizens appearing before council. These are items not on the agenda. If you see something on the agenda you would like to comment, please hold your comments for then. Let me get to the participants. Looks like Eric Stroutman. Mr. Stroutman, we have a couple items on the agenda towards the end about the airport. So if you're commenting on that, let's see, sorry, guys, one sec. Sorry, Eric.
It might also be on, I know we've been working on some insurance issues, and I know some of the users out at the airport are concerned about that. So Eric might be commenting about that as well.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can, Eric.
Wonderful, thank you. No, what I wanted to talk about was, I think, not being covered tonight. I just wanted to take my 3 minutes if you would allow me to.
Absolutely, please.
Okay. Well, thank you again for introducing me. My name is Eric Stroutman. I'm going to speak to you about the new staff report concerning minimum standards for the aeronautical activities at the Glenwood Springs Airport. A month or so ago, Mr. Mayor, you and I had a conversation where we talked about trying to move towards this great chasm that's existed between the airport supporters and some of the actions of council and some of the actions of staff, and specifically asked to tone down the rhetoric and make sure we don't speak negatively and try and act more supportive of staff. And this report that was just issued just kind of throws that into significance at this moment. The new standards report, which I think everybody actually is really excited to get, it just still shows that there's a huge disconnect between staff and what we were hoping would happen. In that report, they asked for $5 million of insurance per plane, when the standard in the country and all of the people who own airplanes at the airport is $1 million. Another example is they ask for $10 million for anybody providing flight training at the airport. I talked to a couple of certified flight instructors, and the standard flight insurance that a certified flight instructor has is $1 million. So in asking for 10 times that amount, it just simply means there won't be instructions given at the airport. And people who love to fly know, and we think about that a pilot's license, we consider that a license to learn. Every year or two, we're required to take instruction, and hindering that availability does nothing to make our airport safer. And obviously the reverse is true. Now, I'm happy to find out that evidently staff has figured out that where they got these numbers from was a confusion between large commercial operations and the normal insurance requirements. But what made me want to speak to council tonight is just the pattern where staff is not involving the airport board or the supporters of the airport. There are still people that believe that, like the Wizard of Oz, there's somebody behind the scenes pulling the things behind, trying to make the airport seem too expensive, seem untenable, and seem better to close it. And what I would just ask, what I would beseech this council and the city manager, Deborah Figueroa, is to press upon your staff the need to work proactively with your own airport board and not to hesitate to involve other airport supporters so that these type of reports that can be so easily misconstrued as trying to put or show the airport in a negative light don't happen. I thank you for your time.
Thanks, Eric. Appreciate it. Carl, I saw that you took yourself off mute. Do you want to speak to this?
Sure. I would respectfully disagree with a fair amount of what Mr. Stratman just said. We've been working on minimum standards for a while. I know that Richard out of my office, who used to work with KKR, one of the largest airport law firms in the nation, has been working on these. I know that he's had 2 or 3 meetings with the airport supporters and board regarding the matter. And we continue to work on the insurance issue, but at the end of the day, that insurance number was going to be dictated by our carriers, because ultimately it falls to the citizens of Glenwood to pay for those things. So we continue to work on that. There's a continuing dialogue going on, and I find it, surprising, I guess. I was trying to find the right word there. Because this has been an ongoing dialogue, and I guess from our standpoint, the whole reason we've engaged in that dialogue was to try to come up with a set of standards that work. The insurance is definitely an issue, and it is an issue across the board in so many of the things we do as a city, that it is increasingly a big component of what we have to address. So those numbers, there was no malintent in putting those standards together or picking those numbers. From our standpoint, we're just trying to do the best we can on behalf of the citizens of Glenwood Springs. And sometimes that's going to come in conflict a little bit with different user groups. That's all.
All right. Thanks for that. Paula?
Carl, you're saying that this document's still in transition? I was just trying to get
Absolutely. No, it has not been adopted. It's something that's going to be coming to council probably in March. And it continues, like I said, there have been 2 or 3 meetings, and I think Tony and I can't remember who, and you actually have been there. I was trying to remember who all was on which commissions. And so it's a continuing work in progress.
Okay.
And absolutely hasn't been released anywhere other than to the airport users at this point for discussion. It hasn't come to you guys because, consistent with that idea of engaging in a dialogue, we've been working with them. So surprised, to say the least, with this evening.
Okay. Thank you, Carl. Thank you for the explanation. Any other people from the audience like to comment for citizens' comments? Okay, I will bring it back for council comments. Councilor Hershey, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, what is this council and what are you specifically going to do about this cold weather? Because it's very cold. Everyone talks about the weather, but nobody ever does anything about it.
If we were in person, I'd make a joke about all the hot air coming from my right side.
Well, that's why it's warm. Thank you.
I just want to support Councilor Hershey's position, please.
See, I already have gained support. Let's put it on the ballot in May.
Just send more snow. That's
Yeah,
what
Right,
we're
more
more-
snow would be nice. Just too cold. Thank you, Shelley.
Thanks, Tony. Anything else? Okay, Charlie.
Just I just want to remind everybody that we have a vacancy at council. The applications are due a week from tomorrow. I understand we have a couple applicants already. I think that's great. We would like to see anybody that has an interest in spending these Thursday nights with us to please apply and have a lot of fun as we have every other Thursday night. So in seriousness, I hope people will apply. This is an important position for the city, and I encourage people to keep in mind that deadline's only a week away. Thanks.
Thanks, Charlie. Anybody else? No one else? I'll say thanks for bringing that up, Charlie. I also want to say, I think, sometimes we get really excited about a topic or about, trying to get things in. I'm trying to do a lot better just for council and the public to know about trying to keep us on time. So if I seem a little overly prescriptive at times, I'm just trying this new hat on for a little bit. But to that point, I will, while I have it one last time, be using the mute button. I don't, I think it takes a lot of time and energy when council people interrupt either commenters or other council people. And I think that just takes more time and energy than if we just let that council person finish their speech. So I don't know how I'm going to use the mute button once we get in person in the next meeting, but I think it is incumbent on us to be kind to each other and to let each other finish their own thoughts. So that's my comments for this evening. So with that, in that spirit, item number 14, consent agenda. I will second that. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye or raise your hand. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, and item number 15, Tourism Management Board appointees. Oh, go ahead, Charlie. Sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. Being the liaison, I thought I would make the motion. I think I mentioned earlier today that Susan Emery, who is currently a tourism related member, has changed position. She's now in the lodging industry. I spoke to Lisa Langer about that earlier yesterday, I guess it was, just to make sure I understood. My understanding is Susan is now, I don't remember exact position, but she's working for the hotel group that owns Hotel Denver, the Holiday Inn, the Express, the what's the other one over there? The one's by the Holiday Express, can't think of the name of it, and also the hotel at the base of the gondola. And so I'm going to make this motion that we change Susan Emery's position from tourism to lodging with an expiration of 2023. We appoint Justine Smith to tourism with an expiration of 2024. We appoint Loretta Ayla to tourism with an expiration of 25. We reappoint Sharon Brady as resident with an expiration of 25. And we appoint Brandon Cameron to restaurant with an expiration of 25. The reason for the years is to keep that, we don't have two tourism people going off the same year, two of the same people go the same year. That's why I put the years in there. That's my motion.
I'll second that.
Okay. And so I'm looking at the staff report. Who did you say, Charlie, is switching up that you suggested switched up?
Susan Emery is on the tourism board now, but she is currently a tourism representative and she no longer is in that industry. And rather than just saying she's not on, I think Lisa felt that we should move her over to lodging. And Robert Smith, who also is applicant for lodging, is her boss. So it wouldn't be appropriate for the both of them to be on. I thought that Susan's doing a good job and I think we should continue her, but only for 1 year. That'll therefore balance that tourism position out with the other Loretta Ayla, who's from Hotel, the Pools. I can't think of the name of their hotel, the Pools Hotel. Be under for till 25. That puts those in different years. That would allow Susan to reapply next year to have her term extended.
Okay. Any comments, questions? All right. I'll just do voice votes for these unless there's some consternation, but all those in favor say aye or raise your hand. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. 0. All right, next one. What's next? Arts and culture. Who is this you, Shelley?
Yes, this is me. We have quite a few applicants for Arts and Culture Board. It's really been an exciting board lately. There's a lot of interest, especially since we adopted the public art plan. So that's really exciting. And let's see, right now, I believe we have one seat that's open and been vacated. Let me get to the staff report quick on that.
Looks like Kyle Jones is a reappointment.
Yes, so Kyle Jones has been on, he has served one term on the board and he would like to be reappointed. So I am definitely recommending that he be reappointed to his seat. And that will be a term, let's see, regular seat. That expires in 03 of 2025. And then we have one alternate seat right now. And I'm suggesting, just with the kind of with the past history on the board, sometimes we've had trouble having a full commission there. We have an evening meetings, and I think a lot of people are just busy sometimes. So I'd like to take that up to 2 alternates to appoint tonight, if we could, if council is amenable to that. Does that sound okay to everyone? So I don't know if I can do this in one
I think,
swoop
yeah.
motion. Okay,
Sure.
all right. And then we also have a youth applicant, which we've been trying to fill the youth seat since the board was created. So we're very happy to have a youth applicant on that. So I will make a recommendation that we reappoint Kyle Jones for a second term on the board. We appoint Ty Hess as the Arts and Culture Board youth representative. And then I'm also recommending that we appoint Jordan Collier. But I have a question on him I wanted to verify. He actually lives in Gypsum, but he has a business based here. And I believe he's eligible to be on the board with that. I haven't been told otherwise. So, but I would like to appoint him to one of the alternate positions.
I'll second that just with a question for Ryan. Usually these boards allow for one non-resident as long as they have a business interest. Do we already have that? Is there anybody that's currently filling that on the Arts and Cultures Board? Do you know, Ryan?
Hey, Jonathan, we did just receive an update that we need to refer all questions regarding boards and commissions to Sarah, that she's the staff, like our contact for boards and commissions.
Oh, fantastic. Is Sarah around to answer that question?
She's usually watching. She doesn't normally respond in meetings. So what is your question again?
My question.
Ryan just doesn't know the answer. So he's like, oh,
Yeah, no problem. Usually Ryan's my go-to. He knows all the answers. But thanks for that. I just didn't know. Do we have anybody? Do we know? Does anybody know?
I think I know, Jonathan. So we have 2 seats that are allowed to be outside city limits, but within the 81601 zip code, and they are both filled. One by Ethan Merritt and one by Liz Karas. Excuse me if I got those wrong, the names.
So not only are they filled, but we also don't have a provision to allow someone who lives outside of 81601.
That's how.
Okay, and no one that has a business interest here. Okay.
I could be wrong, but that's how I understand.
Okay, then that changes me up a little bit. Like I said, we had many applicants, which I was very happy to interview. So
Shelley, may I make a suggestion that we appoint the 2 that you mentioned, Tyler Hesse and Kyle Jones for the re-up, and then the other person that you mentioned, and then maybe if we want to fill that second alternative position, you have a little bit of time so you're not put on the spot here to try to come up with your second choice.
Yeah, that sounds good. So tonight I would appoint Jackie Edelman as the alternate position. And then Kyle Jones for reappointment to his board seat and Ty Hess for the youth. Question, Ryan?
Actually, a statement. I just got emailed by Sarah, and surprise, surprise, I was wrong. It says Arts and Culture Board, 3 of which may reside outside of the city, and 1 which may be a youth representative. Those residing outside the city must reside within the 81601 zip code, own real property or business within the city. So yes,
Okay.
owning business within the city is okay.
So then if that's okay, can we go ahead and fill 2 alternate seats tonight? And one would be Jackie Edelman and one would be Jordan Collier. That's my recommendation. And I'd just like to say thank you to everyone else who applied. It's really been a great board, and I hope if they're interested in being involved, they can still attend meetings. So
I'll second.
Great. It's been moved by Shelley, seconded by Charlie. All those in favor say aye or raise your hand. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, next is Housing Commission appointments. Is this Paula?
Is it actually Shelley? So I'm the alternate.
All right. Oh, Shelley, you're muted.
okay, and I think on this one we have 2 seats. We have seats open. So we have 2 appointments to make, and Paula and I were both involved, I believe, in those interviews, and we both recommend that we would appoint these 2 applicants. So Giovanna Kennedy was interviewed November 11th. She would be appointed to a regular seat with the term expiring in April of 2024. And Anna Marie Glenn was also interviewed on that date, and she will be an alternate to the board with a seat expiring in April of 2025.
I'll second that.
Been moved by Shelley, seconded by Paula. All those in favor say aye or raise your hand. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Historic Preservation Commission appointments.
That's me, Mr. Mayor. Can I go ahead, Jonathan?
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay, great. So on December 6th, we did a number of interviews. Grant Stevens had been appointed as an alternate in May. He was interviewed by me and was deemed eligible for appointment to a regular seat. James Larson was also interviewed by me, and he's filling this term that's going to expire April 2022. And Marion Ackerman was interviewed by me and was deemed eligible for appointment to fill an alternate seat to fill a term expiring April 2024. I only ask just to clarify, and I don't want to bother Ryan or Sarah, but our chairman of HPC, Haley Kramer, is on for a little bit longer. So I would just ask that we be clear that either one of these seats or all these seats are delayed until she leaves, because otherwise if you fill her seat, she's off immediately, and we don't want to do that. She's term limited out. What is it, Charlie, in April or May? May. So I just ask that we do that. Otherwise, I would move that all of these people appointed. Certainly if the person who's appointed to fill Haley's seat wants to come to meetings, including this Monday, they can. It's just, I didn't want to force her off, Mr. Mayor.
Can I make a suggestion, or maybe I'll make a motion that we appoint?
Yeah, that would be helpful since I messed it up.
No, it's okay. I think I get where you're coming from. I'll make a motion that we appoint Grant Stevens and James Larson to fill regular seats. Additionally, that we appoint Marianne Ackerman to appoint the alternate seat starting at the conclusion of Haley Kramer's eligibility.
Does that work, Mr. Wellman?
I'll second it. It works.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Sorry, it was a little confusing.
No, makes sense. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right, next one is Transportation Commission.
I'll jump in on that one. Before we do appointments, I want to mention that Sandy Lowell, who has been a longtime volunteer on the Transportation Commission, an invaluable member, term limited out, and we really thank him so much for his service to the community. And he is actually continuing on the comp plan subcommittee. So we will continue to benefit from his well-rounded perspective. So, but in the meantime, Shelley and I did have a chance to interview both Betsy, I think it's Swarth, and John Harmon. And they were interviewed on November 2nd by both Councillor Rousseau and Councillor Kaup. And we deemed them eligible for appointment to fill terms that were ending March 2024. So I'm going to make a motion to appoint both of them.
Second.
All right, motion by Ingrid, seconded by Tony. All those in favor, signify by saying aye or raise your hand. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Next is Airport Commission appointments.
Yes, the most high-flying board of all of the boards. Your Honor, Mr. Mayor, I would make a motion to appoint Alan Arnold. He's reapplied for appointment to his regular seat. It's going to expire next month. The new appointment would expire in March of 2025.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Paul.
You're
Been moved
welcome.
by Councillor Hershey, seconded by Councillor Stepp. All those in favor say aye or raise your hands. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. All right. River Commission.
That's me. Thank you for sliding this in this time as well. Ashley Moffett, who's been the chairperson for the River Commission's last meeting was this week, Wednesday morning. And she is off now. She's term limited, as well as Ryan Davis, which means we have no Davis's family representatives also term limited off. So we're gonna have to encourage somebody else from that family to jump on board. That being said, we have 2 positions to fill and we have a vacant alternate seat. So I would like to request that we appoint Kyle Holt, who recently bought property within Glenwood and is building there and has been a previous volunteer attendee at River Commission meetings as a representative of the Roaring Fork Fish Alliance. And also Hunter Causey, who lives in Glenwood and actually works at the Colorado River District, so I think would have a great voice on this commission. And Chris Sharrow is a new resident of our town and very enthusiastic about him, and I'd love to see him sit in the alternate seat. So Kyle and Hunter for the 2 positions on the commission and Chris for the alternate is what I'm proposing.
I'll second that.
I'll give it to Shelley. All right, been moved by Paula, seconded by Shelley. All those in favor say aye or raise your hand. Aye. Any opposed? Were you serious, Tony?
No, I was late with my hand up.
Okay.
So, and then you said opposed.
Okay.
Sorry.
I'll
No, I
just-
said opposed. I'm in favor.
I'll blame your slow internet on that delayed hand. So
Yeah.
motion carries unanimously, 6-0. All right. We might be ahead of schedule, guys.
We take a recess because we're ahead of our agenda.
Charles, you're jinxing us. All right, planning item 70-21. This is a right-of-way encroachment license for the drainage feature in Grand Avenue. Do I need to pull someone over?
Could you bring Trent over?
Sure can. While he's coming over, I also want to thank Ashley Moffett for her service on that River Commission. She's been great. She's instrumental in getting Sullivan Park named Sullivan Park. And so I personally want to thank her for that service, longtime member of that River Commission. All right, Trent, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Mr. Mayor. Good evening to you and the City Council. In an effort to keep your schedule moving ahead of your times, I'm going to be very brief. but happy to answer any questions about this license to encroach for some existing drainage infrastructure in the Grand Avenue right-of-way, basically drainage chases that cross the pedestrian sidewalk that's located there. Just to point out that the application does meet the applicable criteria that are outlined in section 706030F3E2. And if you have any questions or if you'd like to see an as-built of those locations, I'd be happy to answer that. Just a reminder, you do need to open this up for a public hearing or for public comment rather.
Okay. Is there any presentation or does it speak for itself? It speaks for itself. Okay. Is there any questions for the document that speaks for itself?
You're muted, Trent.
Happy to go through the criteria for you specifically, but it's pretty straightforward and has been vetted by your engineering department and public works. So,
okay. Seeing an overwhelming number of not hands, I will turn it to the public for public comment. I do not see any hands in the public. Going once, going twice. I'll bring it back for a motion and or further discussion. Councilor Willman.
I would move to approve planning item 70-21, adopting the recommended findings and recommended conditions in the planning file in our packet.
Second.
Been moved by Councilor Willman, seconded by Councilor Hershey. All those in favor say aye or raise your hands. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
thank you very much.
I'm attributing that 100% to your presentation, Trent.
Good job. Thanks.
Thank you, Trent, so much.
All right, item number 23, Colorado Animal Rescue. Who is coming and joining us from Colorado?
He's going to the dogs, Mr.
It was
Hey,
I noticed Jamie Hayes is still part of our conversations here as a panelist.
I think we need to take, usually Wes is going to be with Colorado Animal Rescue, but I don't see him on here.
Jamie helps children, not dogs.
Or Mr. Sheffield, hand up, Mr. Mayor.
Who's
I think,
that?
yeah,
Oh,
Mr.
okay.
Sheffield has his.
Roger.
Thank you. He'll be joining us shortly. Hello, Mr. Sheffield.
Hi, everybody. It's actually Wes. I apologize. I was logged into my board chairman's Zoom account. So I had no idea that I was listed as Roger Sheffield, but this is Wes Boyd. I am the director at Colorado Animal Rescue. Let me get you guys a camera. Ah, much better. I didn't know I'd pop up, so I still have a hat on. We haven't spoken to you guys in a long time, and I just wanted to give you some updates on what's going on at CARE. Remind everybody kind of the stuff that we're up to in the community, discuss any questions you might have, and just catch up in general. Are you guys able to see my screen, or can I be invited to share that?
I think you have to share your screen with us.
Oh, got it. Are you seeing a slide with a Siamese cat?
We're seeing a slide with a cat, but I don't think it's Siamese. Unless my breed identification is.
Are you kidding me? That's a Siamese cat.
All right, we've got a cat.
Where are the bald ones?
That's a good start.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No problem. Thank you. Thanks for your patience. Like I said, we've just been out of touch and wanted to review kind of how our year went and what's been going on at the shelter and answer questions for you guys. First of all, about 3 years ago, we revised our organization's guiding principles. Those are shown here. Our mission is practicing excellence in animal care, education, and advocacy to connect pets to their people. Every animal has a loving home and a community united by healthy, happy, and thriving pets is our vision. And our core values here at the shelter are community, collaboration, compassion, education, home, and gratitude. This logo you see down at the bottom is Socially Conscious Animal Community. That has been a movement that's taken shape mostly in Colorado and is spreading across the world. We consider ourselves a part of that community, and that is sort of the forefront of animal welfare and considered the gold standard in Colorado. They have 8 tenets that I'll read through briefly. Place every healthy and safe animal. Ensure every unwanted or homeless pet has a safe place to go for shelter and care. Assess the medical and behavioral needs of homeless animals and ensure those needs are thoughtfully addressed. Align shelter policy with the needs of our community. Alleviate suffering and make appropriate euthanasia decisions. Enhance the human-animal bond through safe placements and post-adoption support. Consider the health, wellness, and safety of animals for each community when transferring animals. Foster a culture of transparency, ethical decision-making, mutual respect, continual learning, and collaboration. And some of you may be aware that we had these guidelines almost to the T signed into Colorado law last legislative session, I believe in 2020 or 2021. So these are guided by the state at this point. On this slide here, we're just showing our staff. We have 15 employees up at the shelter. 4 of us are mostly in administration and management. Everybody else is very hands-on with animals. We have a lead shelter veterinary technician who mostly cares for the animals here under the supervision of a contract vet, Dr. Kate Owens, who's here with us once a week and available on call the rest of the week. So we have veterinary staff all the time. We also are proud of our behavior manager, Noah. He leads our dog team and has served as a resource for the community and really helps us meet these expectations of socially conscious sheltering by enriching the care of animals here at the shelter and also offering behavior support and behavior evaluations for every animal that we have. We're also working on development in the cat area as well. So our cats are learning tricks and we have behavior support for the community there also. In 2021, we had 177 volunteers contribute 866 hours of volunteer service in 2021. Repeating myself. This past year, we helped 1,035 animals. 629 pets were adopted into new homes. You'll see there 12 chickens, 9 mice, 3 guinea pigs, 3 birds, 8 rabbits, 287 dogs, 307 cats. 115 stray pets were returned to their owners. Proud of that number as well. And we assisted 286 pets through community programs. A little bit more intake information. When it comes to stray animals, you saw the number before, the 100 and something that were returned to home. 206 stray pets actually arrived here at the shelter. If we were to look and break down how many animals came from Glenwood Springs addresses, there were 62. 18 of those were dogs that came through Glenwood Springs PD and the community service officer, primarily Lynn. And below that, you'll see that we accepted overall 271 animals as owner surrenders, meaning that an owner could no longer care for their pet and needed somewhere to bring them. 76 of those animals came from Glenwood Springs addresses. The biggest reasons in our area for animal surrender are listed there. These are specific to Glenwood Springs. So of those 76, 21% were due to animal health and financial restraints. 20% was animal behavior, meaning the animal was exhibiting either a problem with another animal in the home or with people, or for example, peeing outside the litter box. 20% were also due to no pet housing or moving into restricted housing. We hear stories of that quite often. 14% were other reasons: allergies, money, personal. 13% cited not enough time for their pet. 12% came in from accidental litters. Something we're really proud of in the past couple of years is the expansion of our community programs. So in 2021, we have been working with Lift Up and Colorado Pet Food Pantry. We attend quarterly Lift Up food giveaway events, and this past year we gave away 6,360 pounds of food. We also provide food to the different pantries at the Lift Up food banks, so they're available to hand those out on a regular basis. We also have a pet pantry here, and anyone who's in need of pet food can come to the shelter for that. Last year, as Garfield County discontinued the animal control program, we kicked off our free pet ID tags. Over the year, we mailed 508 ID tags out to different pet owners. I'm really proud of that number as well. And last year, even with COVID, we had a couple of appointment-only vaccine clinics and vaccinated 124 community pets. Our spay and neuter voucher fund, called the Dove Fund, offered $50 each to over 100 pets at a total cost of $5,000. These are some of the groups that we work with. I know I'm running short on time, and I see a cute pup in Tony's hands. That will distract us. These programs, these organizations that we work with, we're primarily partnering to provide resources to clientele that may be in need. For example, if someone is hospitalized, which we have a case of right now, their pet can come and stay with us until they are able to care for them again. If somebody's in a difficult family situation, experiencing homelessness or domestic violence, their pets are welcome to stay with us here at the shelter. We also work to make sure that they have pet food and supplies as needed, and we can help those community members with vaccines, microchipping, pet ID, and behavior support as well. Just a few things we're doing outside of those. Glenwood Springs Police Department has 24-hour access to the shelter. We have designated kennel space. There is potential for after-hour drop-offs for bite, holds, or disease quarantine. We've also worked to put in some defined emergency and wildfire plans based on our experience 2 summers ago. Really, that includes what steps we would take for evacuation and how we can help those who are experiencing evacuation orders. Another program that's been long-standing is the Community TNR Feral Cat Program. We call it the Street Cat Coalition. TNR stands for Trap, Neuter, Release. This helps us care for community cats and feral populations so that those don't get out of control. The idea is that cats are brought into the shelter, spayed, neutered, and ideally returned back to where they had been living comfortably. If that was a bad situation, then we work to read. At all times, we can house up to 40 dogs, 50 cats, and plenty of other creatures. We always follow vaccine protocols and look out for any sign of disease in the area. We consider it our responsibility to keep domestic pets safe within our community. So we have an eye on changes and things like heartworm ticking up in different communities and coming here. We also offer some humane education programs and group visits for school groups and some other organizations in the Valley. Just a quick idea of where our funding comes from. We raise about 50% of our money through donations, fundraising events. This year, we had a record number of grants. We received a record number of grants at almost 10%. And in 2021, Garfield County funding made up 36%. Our contract with Glenwood Springs was about 2%, and our fees for services such as adoption or stray boarding were 10%. This number for 2022 is looking a little different. Garfield County has been steadily decreasing our funding. mostly in an effort to support the Rifle Animal Shelter and their expansion into a new building. So as we've seen the county grow and the need for 2 different animal shelters arise, we are starting to see a big shift there. So that number will represent about 30% this next year. They're decreasing our funding from 250,000 to 220,000. 3 or 4 years ago, that was at 365. So it's been a significant change for us.
Hey, Wes, how many more slides do we have?
One.
Okay, fantastic.
Yep. Yeah, we'll actually just glance at it just to let you know what we have coming up. A few community events that you should take part in. Our Snowshoe Shuffle is February 27th. Dog Day 5K will be in August, and we'll be down at the Strawberry Day celebration this summer.
Awesome.
That's it. Thank you. Wanted to save time for questions. I know that went on a little long.
It's okay. It's okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Wes. Paul had a question.
Paula, go ahead.
Just real quick, are you guys fostering too? Or do you have a foster program where?
We sure do, yeah.
Thank you.
We are working to expand the foster program a little bit. It's primarily been used to house animals with medical needs or litters of kittens and puppies. For the most part, we have the most adoption success with animals who are here at the shelter. But we are trying to push the limits of that and see how many more animals we can get into foster.
Great program.
Anyone's welcome to, thanks, yeah, anyone's welcome to apply to foster or volunteer.
Charlie. Thanks, Paula.
Jelly or Charlie?
Charlie, I said.
I thought you said Shelley too, so.
Um,
I just want to thank you for all your work you do, that CARE does. I've had the opportunity to adopt 2 dogs. One was really bright. The other one, I think I left part of his brains at your agency, but he's still a wonderful dog. And I just think you guys do a great job, and I want to thank you for all you do.
Really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks, Charlie. Shelley, enunciate better.
Yes, I have similar comments. We got our new little dog, Moki. If I can get him up here to say hi. Come on, Moki, say hi. Come on. He's the best ever. And you guys, yeah, can't really see him there, but you do a great job and really appreciate all you do. And so my question for you tonight was, do you have a specific funding request, or are we going to talk about that later? Maybe that's for Deborah too.
No, I'm happy to talk about that. I don't have a specific request this evening. I really just wanted to reconnect with you guys and let you know that our funding model is shifting, and there is potential for us to ask for additional help from the city. We've been really comfortable with that Garfield County relationship, and as that changes, we're just trying to reevaluate exactly where everything is. So I'd love to discuss those opportunities and possibly present something later this year or work within the granting season.
Okay, thank you.
That is a great segue to say that I'm racing you to get there, Deborah. Right now, we actually have our grant cycle open. So
okay,
if you go onto COGS, whatever, our city website, there'll be a link there to our grant cycle. So please put an application in there. The guidelines are pretty well laid out.
Thanks so much.
Yeah. Ingrid.
I have one question and one comment, and that is, did you guys have I know that Garfield County, the Sheriff's Department reduced or even eliminated their ability because of budgetary constraints to do stray pets. Did that have a cost impact on you guys?
Not very significantly, no. So traditionally, Garfield County was providing funding per animal that came in through the Sheriff's Department. So we did lose that bit of income.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, the community members have taken that role on, and those animals come into our care regardless. It does kind of change our boarding fee structure for those situations, whereas someone would pay the Sheriff's Department for a stray boarding fee. It's now up to us to decide how we're assessing that. So it has shifted a little bit. It's not a huge change in cost, and we're very impressed with how well the communities come together. And honestly, the transition to no animal control officers really went more smoothly than expected. So we're proud and relieved of that at the same time.
I'm glad. And then my comment was just some accolades for you, just both in how you guys manage the facilities but also your reputation within the community. I mean, all of us, it's so easy to repeat the comments and the compliments that we receive of both how you care for the animals, but how you make sure the community knows that there are animals that are looking for new homes. And then one thing that from your presentation, your support of Rifle Animal Shelter. I just think that collaboration just exemplifies kind of your beliefs and your compassion to the animal community. So thank you. Thank you for all you do.
You're very welcome. Thanks for the acknowledgement. With the Rifle Animal Shelter, we're all in this together. Our work is always very similar with the animals in mind. Few differences between us, but proud to call them partners.
That's awesome.
Wes, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. This great update. I think, you guys do great work. We're all really supportive. So we'll definitely be looking for that grant application when you put it in.
Sounds excellent. Thanks so much. We'll try to make this a regular thing once a year or so.
That'd be great. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. Next, youth mental health, item number 24. I'm going to bring over Ms. Cole.
I was going to say, Mr. Mayor, they're going to run through the presentation quickly for the public.
And the reason why it's quickly just for the public, there's 20 attendees. The reason is we had a 45-minute work session on it today, so we're pretty familiar with it. So if we keep it high level, I think we've heard a lot of our questions answered. But go ahead. Don't race so much that you feel rushed, though.
All right. I'm Jamie Hayes, the Executive Director of YouthZone, and I am honored to be here in an important collaborative project with Anna Cole from the Roaring Fork School District, who represents the school district and the Hope Center. So we're excited to be here. Thank you so much for having us. Anna, I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself, and then we'll jump in.
Sure. I'm Anna Cole. I'm the Chief of Student and Family Services for the school district, the Roaring Fork Schools. And we're here to talk about our collaborative work to make sure that all our kids and our communities have access to evidence-based prevention, intervention, treatment, response to really strengthen mental health and well-being. In the Roaring Fork Schools, one of the things we've learned through some lots of pilot projects, including partnerships with the City of Glenwood Springs, is we've really been working to expand a model where we have a community mental health provider in all our schools that students can access for free. This model helps us increase student access, increase alignment of services. And when we work with partners like the Hope Center to staff those positions, we really benefit from their ability to recruit, retain mental health providers, for them to be able to support those mental health providers with professional development support, and then also provide kind of critical crisis services for us in the schools, which is really beyond the scope of work for educators. This slide shows kind of some of the work that's happened this school year, in the 21-22 school year, with some of our community-based mental health providers who are working at Glenwood Springs High School, Glenwood Springs Middle School, Glenwood Springs Elementary, and Socris Elementary, partially supported by the City of Glenwood Springs. And so you can see the numbers of kids served, family services, and then you can kind of see a little bit of the demographics of who is being served and which kids are accessing the resources. So it's nice to see a balance of kids that looks like the demographics of our schools. In our goal to try to get a community mental health provider at each school, this is kind of a chart of all our public Glenwood Springs schools and what our current status is on funding and putting those positions together. So we're here to ask for a little expanded support from the City of Glenwood Springs to sustain some of these positions as we finish up the 21-22 school year and then move into 22. A critical partner of ours, we know that, a mental health provider at the school is really important to increase access, but a lot of times kids need a little bit more than that. And that's really where YouthZone comes in. And that's why this is a collaborative ask. So we'll let Jamie take it from here.
All right. Thank you, Anna. We are so grateful as a community-based mental health organization that our school districts and our other partners are so focused on tier 1, tier 2 mental health services within the school, because it really helps us do our job at a tier 3 level in our community. We provide lots of services as a community organization, and we're growing in our professional development and our capacity to be able to provide even more. Our messaging right now to our community is that we not only provide court services and support for families, but much, much more. And I hope to be able to explain that in the next few slides. We have increased our collaboration with our district partners from Parachute to Aspen. On average, we have received 2% of our referrals from our school partners. We are now receiving 33% of our referrals from our school partners, which means that we are swimming upstream together to make sure that our kids are not engaging with the juvenile justice system, and we're able to intervene before that. We recognize that our families and our communities are in need of increased equity and access to mental health services and other critical support services. So we travel to our clients in our schools and partnerships. We have waived our fees at 100% for our direct school referrals for incidents that happen during the school day. And we've increased our bilingual staff, as well as provide a 24/7 interpretation service to our families. In the city of Glenwood Springs, you can see here that the need for mental health counseling and substance intervention is larger than what we see overall in our organization. We're not quite sure why at this time. This is new data for us. So as we work through this year, we'll be able to report in more detail what's happening here. We've increased our referrals from 95 to 135 in the city of Glenwood Springs. Our engagement from schools, as we said before, went from 2% to 33%, displaying an increased collaboration. We're very excited about that. And we are seeing a need for increased mental health counseling at the tier 3 community level from 1,776 hours just for the city of Glenwood Springs to 2,220 hours, which is over one full-time mental health position just for the city of Glenwood. This is a great diagram that just shows where we get our funding. Our funding comes from many, many, many different places. We have very stable funding from community partners, grants, foundations, donors, our municipalities and counties. And we are very grateful to be able to bring some critical partnership to our schools so that we can increase the support that is needed, as Anna spoke about earlier. And that concludes our presentation. Any questions from council?
Councilwoman.
Not really a question. I just, if you could, I know you guys both mentioned Hope Center, and could you just tell the public who they are? They're just a phenomenal organization. I work with them, some of my family law clients, and they're great. I think they should get some recognition there.
Absolutely. Yeah, the Hope Center is kind of started out doing a lot of crisis response. And so they do a lot of mental health crisis response and often ride along with some of our police departments and provide mental health services for all ages. They provide group services. They've really moved into being leaders in the school-based mental health services work over the last few years and have really really spearheaded a lot of those partnerships. And they're a nonprofit in the Valley. And so they are very, they do a lot of work to raise money and fundraise and write grants and then work on partnerships to provide these services. Yeah, does that, I don't know, Charlie, is there anything else that I missed there, or Jamie, anything I missed?
Yeah, I'll just add
no,
that
No, go ahead, Jamie.
Our partnership with the Hope Center, as well as the Roaring Fork School District, and I should have really layered on this as well, and thank you, Charlie, for bringing this up. we share referrals across all of our organizations. So while we have increased our school referrals from 2% to 33%, we're also increasing our relationship and our partnership with our partner organizations that are nonprofit in our valley that also serve our youth. And one of our biggest referral partners is our schools and youth-facing organizations like the Hope Center. And so I just want to call out the essential service that they provide and the amount of support and celebration that we provide them publicly as well.
Ingrid.
You know, I'm actually, if everybody is set, I was going to make a motion. Does anybody want to talk before I make a motion?
I didn't know, are we taking public comment or do we not need to?
I don't think it's not an ordinance, so I think if there's a motion, it'd be in order.
Okay. So regarding the joint proposal on the youth zone in the Roaring Fork School District, request for $335,000. I'll make a motion that we fund that with $75,000 coming from the marijuana fund and $260,000 coming from the tobacco tax.
Second.
Be great.
Second.
Been moved by Councilor Russo, seconded by Councilor Hershey. Further conversation? Ryan, let's take roll. Call the question, not take roll. We've already done it. Call the question.
We could take roll again.
We could.
Mayor Pro Tem Willman,
Yes.
Councilor Wusso,
Yes.
Councilor Cow,
Yes.
Mayor Godus,
Yes.
Councilor Stepp,
Yes.
Councilor Hershey,
Yes.
6-0.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you for all the work you guys do. We really appreciate it. We're happy to give to this. We're happy the citizens twice voted for the marijuana tax and the tobacco tax to allow us to do these things. So thank you to our citizens as well.
Thank you, Jamie, so much.
Thank you so much.
Oh, and Anna.
Yeah, thanks for your support and engagement with us. We really appreciate you guys leaning in. Thanks.
We really appreciate you all. Thank you so much. Thanks for your energies showing up so often and communicating and just advocating for our youth. Like, it is so invaluable. Thank you.
All right, item number 25, 6th Street Design and Grant Funding. Who is this? Deborah, I can't hear you.
Really?
No, now I can. Now I can. I really couldn't the first time. I think you just answered quickly after you.
Mr. Mayor, we should gaslight her the whole night and go, what?
That would be Terry.
What?
I'm sorry, your microphone's not on.
Who?
Okay, go ahead, Deborah. Am I bringing Terry over? Is Terry already over? There she is. Hey, Terry.
Evening. You guys are going to have to go try lip reading with Deborah. I could see her mouth saying Terry the whole time. Terry. This is regarding 6th Street. As you guys know, we've been working on this project since 2021. We started with a local engineering firm and began trying to take our 6th Street master plan and apply it to the blocks between Laurel and Pine. We've been working on it for a while, and we had tried last year to go out for additional grant funding for the project. It's currently funded through both our A&I tax for the construction, and then also through the DDA is currently paying for the design of the project. We did try last year, and we are hoping that you'll think it's a good idea to try again this year for federal funding for the project. The idea of getting federal funding for the project is just to be able to shift the dollars that we have associated with the project in A&I and allocate them to other projects throughout the city. Last year, when we applied for the federal or for funding for the project, we initially started with the Main Streets grant. And the Main Streets grant at the time didn't require that we bring the project up to a state and federal funding level. So when we bring a project up to that type of design and construction standards, it costs the city a little bit more to go to that level. We have to do a bunch of different things with our construction standards in terms of material testing and qualification. With projects like that, it contains steel or bridges. We have extra design criteria that need to be met. So with the Main Streets grant changing from what we thought was just a project that we could pay for without having those state and federal requirements, if we would like to have this project or consider these grant funds again, we do need to, increase the cost of the project overall, or at least what we've allocated to the project. In addition, it would delay it. We are at about a 10% design level with the project as it stands. And we have talked to the existing design engineer, and they are really not capable of bringing the project up to a state or federal funding package. So if we wanted to do this, if we wanted to go through and go for these funds again, we would be looking at additional costs for the project as well as delay. The two grants that we are considering are, again, the Main Streets grant, which we applied for last year, as well as the RAISE grant. With the RAISE grant, we were in a grant that was, advocated for by CDOT. It had 4 different projects in it. 2 of them were ours, both 6th Street and 8th Street, as well as the Rifle Park and Ride and a bus station in Grand Junction. So I guess the first question for the council is, do you think it's worthwhile to increase the project cost and the time of delivery to go for these additional grant sources?
Oh,
Terry, we'd increase the cost, but the cost would be covered. Am I understanding that correctly? If we get the grants.
So to some degree, with the construction cost, I am adjusting our estimate right now. It would be covered by the grant. And the one place where we really wouldn't be covered is in the design costs. Initially when we went through our selection process for our consultant, our design costs were lower than we would have normally expected for the project. So I think those design costs would likely go up if we had to select another consultant, and then we would have to add to the scope of work and allow a consultant to bring it into a federal state package.
And can you give us numbers that we can look at?
Yeah, so this is right now what I'm doing is adjusting the project budget up by about 20%. So we were at roughly 1.5 million, and I think we're going to be at about 1.8 million for construction costs. And I think our design costs will be in the range of, I think of it as being about 10% of the overall cost. So 180,000, 200,000, somewhere in there.
And if you don't get the grant, can we revert back to the lesser cost?
I think so. In this case, it'll be easier than others. I think because 6th Street is really just a surface project, there isn't steel or structures associated with it. I think we can take out specifications and try to bring it back to a local funding level.
Okay, thanks. That answers my questions.
Thanks, Paul. Charlie, sorry.
Thank you. I have expressed my unhappiness already and where we are. We were supposed to be going out to bid this month. I'm, you know, this is not meant to be contrary to staff. I think staff's done a great job and I appreciate that. I'm very unhappy with the engineering firm that we're not on further than 10% in plans. As long as this doesn't delay the project any further, I have no problem. And speaking to Deborah about this, I think that the benefits we get from this outweigh the cost. And I do think it's a good idea. But I do want to say that it's pretty clear to me this is going to get built this year as we anticipated. And I would hope that we're going to be in a place by the end of this calendar year that we are out to bid and we can build beginning of next year as soon as the weather breaks in 2023. This is a project that is way overdue. It's an interest to our city, and I really want to get this done. And so I don't want to belabor too much, but I think I've expressed real clearly how unhappy I am that we are where we are today. So.
I appreciate your frustration, Charlie, but and I certainly support the project. I also think it's been delayed by pandemic and many other things. So, but my understanding though, Terry, kind of the biggest issue is the delay with having to do NEPA process and everything. But it sounds like from what Charlie just said, we're almost looking at that delay anyway. Is that the gist of it?
You know, the consultant has struggled a little bit, I would say, to deliver what we, you know, the original schedule that we had asked for. You know, we've had a number of meetings with them to try to help them understand what we needed. And I think, you know, I think that they were preparing to try, you know, at our last meeting, they said that they thought that they could probably get a package out to us by April. But again, you know, that would be a package that wasn't prepared for state or federal funding. You know, they just don't have that capability.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I would agree. I think overall, if we can get the grant funding, it helps us get both of these projects done. And it just frees up funding in other places for other projects. So are we ready for a motion or?
I think if we want to make a motion, it is, yeah.
Okay. I would like to move that we go forward with the grant funding applications for both the 8th Street project and the 6th Street project as proposed here, and that we get the proposals from engineering firms to complete the designs to the state and federal requirements.
I'll second that.
Been moved by Shelley, seconded by Paula. Further conversation? I'll just put in real quick my 2 cents, and I see Tony's hands up, so I'll get to Tony as well. But I just want to say that thank you, staff, for pursuing these grant options. Nothing's ever in the bag, but we have heard a lot of good feedback about this being a priority. So I think that just like South Midland and the 27th Street Bridge was, I think we had $9 million of grant funding. Don't correct me too much if I'm wrong. It's a lot, but all that money. What's that, Terry?
Yeah, you're right on.
Okay, all right. But I think, you know, all that grant funding that we can get, just, you know, that is $9 million extra. If we can get this $6 million here, because the 8th Street is something we're not actually talking about. That's an obligation we have to do to our commitment to CDOT from the 5 years ago Grand Avenue Bridge replacement. So, and the acquisition of that Y. So, you know, $6 million is still a lot of money. So I really commend staff, and I'm really hopeful for it. And yeah, go team. Charlie.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said, Mr. Mayor, and I think the staff, again, like consternation is not with staff, it's with the consultant. What I would ask for is for a friendly amendment to the motion that this doesn't delay the completion of plans so we can go to bid by the end of the year, the first part of next year. Would you agree to that amendment?
I guess it depends. Do we have to go through a NEPA process?
We do, and I have talked to the state about doing the process for 6th Street, and they're willing to take that on. I've also been having a few conversations with consultants that I know that are capable of this work. And one in particular, Jacobs, who has worked on or is working on our Southbridge project. They have already done essentially the NEPA process for both projects through the Grand Avenue Bridge project. So I will ask for proposals from at least 3 different firms for to continue this work if the council approves that.
I guess I'm just wondering if that time frame, you know, what that Charlie's proposing for amending the motion would work with a NEPA process.
I think Deborah wants to express some caution.
I'm going to jump in because I will not agree to second that, because I think that implies that staff isn't working as hard and that COVID might not rear its head, and that we might not have things come up in life. And I don't want to put artificial deadlines on things when we know everybody's working really hard to get things done. We still have a South Midland project that's going full steam. We still have Red Mountain. We're trying to do a lot of things. So if it slips past the first quarter by a couple days, I don't want somebody bringing the hammer down on anybody. So I will not
forget South Midland.
What's that?
Don't forget South Midland.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Okay.
If Shelley wants to amend the motion, then we'll need to find a second.
No, I think I'll leave it as it is and just not address the time issue.
But I was the second, just so you know, Jonathan.
I was doing so good tonight. Just look at the clock if you ever want to, like. I'm sorry, Paula. Tony, go ahead.
Thank you. I think no one would be surprised. I'm frustrated like Charlie, but Charlie's frustrated because delay. I'm frustrated because we seem to focus on things that aren't as important. I wish I could vote for half of this, but I can't. So I'm going to say no. Thanks.
All right. It's moved by Shelley, seconded by Paula. I am so sorry. I really thought I seconded that. In my mind, in my heart, I did. Ryan's called the question.
Counselor Wusso,
Yes.
Counselor Stepp,
Yes.
Counselor Hershey,
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Wellman,
No.
Mayor Godus,
Yes.
Counselor Kaup,
Yes.
4-2.
Thank you,
Okay.
Councilman.
Thank you very much, Terry. Item number 26, this is an ordinance, so we will take public comment. 20-2205, this is amending sections in Title 090 of the public lands.
Mr. Mayor, for clarification, this is a first reading, or Mr. Hanlon, correct? So I still think we take public comment, though.
Yes, I said, yeah, I thought I said
Oh,
we
I'm
do.
sorry, I didn't hear you. Thank you.
That was more reminding myself, since I can't even remember who's seconding motions.
You mean when Shelley seconded that motion last time?
That's right.
Yeah.
All right. Looks like Brian Smith has his hand up, and I will promote him.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Council. So before you have first reading of ordinance series 2022-05. This is amending sections of Title 90 of the Municipal Code regarding regulation of public lands. In June of last year, we had a discussion with Council on ordinance 2021-06 regarding authorization of commercial use of parks through a permitting system. Since that time, we've looked through Title 90, which is in regards to public lands, identified a number of revisions and updates needed. So in this ordinance, we have included the previously discussed changes to Title 90, including the ability for the city manager to issue commercial activity permits. It also makes small changes to the rules and regulations for parks and archery range, cemeteries, and amends 90-50-50 to use the construction trades license section of Title 50 for commercial tree cutters. And like you had just mentioned, this is a first reading. On second reading of the ordinance, there will be companion resolutions that include regulations and fees for commercial permits, adoption of changes to parkland rules and regulations, updates to the code regarding street trees in the right of way, updates to our legal descriptors for designated parklands, and adoption of revisions to 9010 regarding airport rules and regulations and minimum standards, which was talked about during public comment that we're working through those edits and changes to bring council. Just to briefly go through just the highlights of some of the changes through these sections. In 9020, regarding rules and regulations for cemeteries, we just put on there where those rules and regulations can be found online, as well as available in copies at City Hall. We also added on in 9030 for municipal parks, rules and regulations, and made a few changes to those. Specifically, we one thing I want to point out is we did make the hours of operations for the designated parklands a little broader and made that a little earlier at 6 o'clock in the morning. In 903040, we added in commercial activity permits, and we have rules and regulations and a fee schedule that we have put together and drafted for council's review regarding those. We removed section 903050, which really is kind of the codified version of the rules and regulations for parklands. And so that will be adopted by resolution, giving us a little more flexibility to make changes as needed. We also removed section 903060, which predominantly addressed commercial rafting and related activities in regards to Two Rivers Park. Since the improvements and reconfiguration of the boat ramp with the creation of staging areas and the work that we did at Two Rivers Park, a lot of those restrictions are no longer necessary. We've designed the layout and land use areas around the boat ramp for commercial activities as well as for residential use to better flow. And so a lot of those restrictions are now addressed with the ability to accommodate many of those things. So that section has been taken out, and anything that is still pertinent to restrictions as far as commercial activities is now contained within the rules and regulations to be adopted by council. And then we also had, like I mentioned before, made some changes to 9050 regarding street trees, specifically in this reading for licensing of commercial tree cutters. So we are utilizing the construction trade licensing as called out in Title 50 for licensing of commercial tree cutters, and that is handled through our community development department. We will be bringing back to council, we are bringing back changes to street trees in the right of way on public and private properties, as well as updating, like I said, legal descriptors for designated parklands, and then the airport rules and regulations and minimum standards for 9010. And so that will be coming back to you. We do have, as well as those cemetery rules and regulations, park rules and regulations, rules and a fee schedule for the new commercial permits. And I am happy to take any questions you have specifically on any of those changes. Those changes are outlined as double underlined in your packet with exclusions crossed out.
All right, Charlie and Paula.
Yeah, Brian, you just mentioned something about airport at the beginning of that. I didn't see that. I just went back and made sure I didn't miss it. And then I know that Mr. Strauben mentioned it earlier in council or comments. Are those going to be included in this ordinance, or am I just missing something?
Yeah, so there are some sections that we're still working on that we'll be bringing back to council. So the airport rules and regulations are contained in 9010 in that Title 90, and that'll be coming to council. We're still working on those.
So will that come in a separate ordinance, or would that be part of this ordinance itself?
They probably all come in a separate ordinance, because I doubt that we're going to be ready on those for first reading on this one. There will be some companion resolutions on, implementation rules and regulations and fees that go with this on second reading.
I read that in the pack. I just didn't want to be voting for something tonight. We're going to be adding a major component about airports that I'm not even looking at tonight. So, but we're not talking about adding any regulations other than those areas in which we're approving tonight, correct?
Right, yeah, everything that you're looking at in first reading is included in the packet. Those separate resolutions for adoption of rules and regulations, I'll be coming in a future council meeting. And I just want to kind of re-echo what Carl said in regard to public comment around the airport rules and regulations. That is something that we've been working closely with the airport board on. We've had several members of the airport board in on those meetings, along with Richard from our legal department, who are going through pretty much line by line, addressing each concern. And like Carl said, we're working with our insurance providers to get what those amounts will end up being.
Oh,
I'm still a little confused on second resolution and second reading, and are we going to have a discussion about it, or it's just going to be added in the consent agenda?
No, so the resolutions you'll have a discussion about, those won't be on the consent agenda. We're just saying that because there's 2 readings on an ordinance and 1 on a resolution, I usually bring the resolutions with the regulations or the fee schedule back at the same time as the second reading, because that way everything is implemented at the same time. That's all.
All right. Well, what I wanted to hear out of it, that we'll have a discussion. So I think you covered my
Yeah.
question, Carl. Thank you. And then the tree cutter one, this is actually just a specific so I kind of read through it, and my sense was, and I just want an affirmation, is that if I go out in my front yard and cut down a tree, I don't need a personal property kind of thing. I could cut down a tree, but if I hired somebody, they need to go through these regulations. Is that correct, Brian?
Yeah. So
basically, if you're making money off of it, you got to bartering.
Exactly. Like any kind of a construction company, they need to be licensed with the city. And so this is just a license process that is done through our community development department.
Okay, I just wanted clarity on that. And then everything that was crossed off and what you had just told me, because you talk really fast, like me sometimes, everything that's crossed off is addressed somewhere else. Is that kind of what I'm hearing, like with the boat ramp and park regs? And
yeah, so the main sections, like we talked about, that are being removed, like 90-50-50 licensings of commercial tree cutters, that's being addressed through this contractor license, trade license. So that's being removed in directing how the department would issue that license. And then the removal of 90-30-60, which is the commercial rafting activities at Rivers Park. A lot of those are no longer permanent because we have made layout changes to that approach and staging areas where we can accommodate a lot of those uses that we normally would restrict, because that would block up and take up a lot of the parking and spaces. So other residents and commercial users are kind of getting backed up, not able to get in and utilize the park. There are some sections in there, some points that we did retain, and those are contained in the park rules and regulations, like you said and suggested. And then the last major one again was 90-30-50. Certain acts prohibited within parklands. That's really redundant of what we established as park rules and regulations. So we just like to have that in a resolution form. It allows us a little more flexibility, a little easier to make changes as needed, rather than codifying that and having to go through 2 readings of that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none, it's an ordinance. We will turn it over to the public for public comment. Oh, I'm sorry. Shelley, you had a question? Well, hold on a second.
Yeah, I had a quick question.
Can I just finish, just real quick, can I just see if anybody from the public else wants to comment? I don't see anybody. We'll close public comment. We'll bring it back for further questions and or comments. Go ahead, Shelley.
Or a motion.
Okay. I just had a question on section 090-30-040 concerning the commercial activity permits. And I know this came out of, Brian, a discussion we had last year about someone who wanted to give exercise classes in the parks. How do we, and this puts the authority and the duty of that on the city manager, but I guess I'd like to see some kind of a restriction on types of businesses and activities that would be allowed in the parks. So is there a mission statement for the parks, or kind of does that exist? I've kind of looked, I haven't been able to find it, but.
Yeah, so I think what you're looking for, like I said, is going to be contained in that park use permit policy governing the procedure of reservation permits. If you'd like to, we can go through that tonight, but that'll be coming back to council. That contains what the permit application requirements are. It has our fee schedule for commercial use permits, application deadlines, submission and review policies, cancellation, notification to surrounding neighborhoods and businesses in the event that there's amplified sound related to that.
Okay, and not so much that. I think my concern more is that we restrict any business activities that we're going to allow or permit in the parks to kind of the mission of the parks, which is to serve, our public for recreation and health and, that kind of thing, not have our parks turned into like a commercial enterprise. Does that make sense? So I don't know if we have anywhere where we can just have the assurance that there's some restriction on the types of business activities that we would allow in the parks.
I think, Shelley, where that would go is on page 2 of 5 of the exhibit, 0900300040.
Right.
And
under C.
And we tried. If you'll remember back on when we went to a first reading on this ordinance way back, and we kind of struggled to come up with that list. And by we, I mean you all.
Okay.
And so I think what I would like to do, I totally appreciate that position. And frankly, it's kind of from a personal level, I definitely agree with it. My suggestion would be is maybe we adopt this on first reading. And if you guys could give some thoughts to the categories of uses that you are comfortable with, maybe we include those as an amendment to C or A in 0900300040.
Okay, yeah, because that's what I was just looking. A line that said something like, uses that are in alignment with the mission of the city parks, but if we don't have a stated mission, then
yeah. And I think that I actually think it would be probably better to just identify the categories. We struggled at the staff level. I mean, this is a tough one. Like, where do you draw the lines and what kinds of things? So I guess that would be my suggestion. But we definitely understand the concern and have struggled with it at the staff level.
Okay, maybe we can work on that, and I might request that if you guys can bring suggestions back for second reading, that might be appropriate. And I'll try to think of things too.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a slippery slope. You want to be careful that you're not creating criteria that might be viewed as discriminatory based on, the content of the activity. Like Carl said, that it's really hard to define that with how broad those activities might be. But we do kind of put in here under these policies, based on the size and scope of the event, we can request a meeting between the applicant and relevant city departments to review applications that may pose a significant impact to surrounding neighborhoods and community resources. The purpose of that means to review the permitting process, applications, city rules, regulations, policies, requirements, basically to make sure that it's an appropriate activity for the space. And that is something that we did hear from council when we talked about this last summer.
Okay, and part of my goal too, Brian, is just not to have the city manager be put in a position where she doesn't have clear guidelines to kind of evaluate activities that are appropriate in the parks.
Councilor Hershey.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to make a motion to approve ordinance 2022-05, amending sections in Title 090 public lands on first reading.
I would second that. It's moved by Councilor Hershey, seconded by myself. Ryan, let's call the question.
Councilor Stepp.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Wellman.
Yes.
Mayor Godus.
Yes.
Counselor Hershey,
Oui, monsieur.
Counselor Kaut,
Yes.
Counselor Wusso,
Yes.
6-0.
All right. Next item is item number 27, resolution 2022-07, accepting a grant from CDOT Aeronautical for fueling systems. I think we can probably also discuss the next one as well. They're two separate resolutions, so we'll take two separate votes, but I think for purpose of our discussion, they're very similar discussions. So I think, Paul, you had some questions about this, or Carl, you wrote us a memo, so.
Yeah, actually Richard did, but can talk about it. So I think Counselor Stepp was concerned regarding the grant assurances that are always part of an aeronautical grant. And frankly, we face some of those similar, different wording, but similar provisions in a lot of the DOLA grant awards as well, regarding the improvements and how long they have to be in place or you're obligated to repay the grants. We sent you a memo on February 3rd that kind of went through that in detail. That both of these are being identified as that the useful life term in both these cases is 10 years. The two things that would happen if you, for whatever reason, changed direction or, whatever, close the airport, disposed of the fueling system for some other reason before the end of the useful life, you'd be responsible for repaying the grant and would probably become ineligible for future grants. The important thing to understand here is that it does not prevent you from doing anything like many contracts. It simply has consequences if you make choices, right? It doesn't say you can't, dispose of the fueling system because of some reason that came up. It just means that there's a consequence to doing that. So it is not a limitation on your authority. It's just, CDOT Aeronautical wants to make sure that if they're handing out money, that, it doesn't get flipped the day after they hand the money out. And that is similar to any other grant, frankly. So.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I just wanted to provide clarity why my question was out there. And
yeah, please. I think it's helpful.
When I read it, I wasn't aware that the repercussions if we ended up changing the land at the airport. And I'm not proposing or not propose. It's not a question of whether I want to see the airport closed, but it's been part of our discussion. And I just wanted council to be aware that if we do change what we do at the airport, it'll change our responsibilities in this grant. And I just wanted it on the table. That's all I was looking at, is making sure that every council member was aware what would happen if we closed the airport 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, wherever it is out there, and what it would mean for us. So I'm just looking for clarity.
Thanks. We have a couple hands up. Questions, Charlie and then Shelley.
Carl, you mentioned something about a memo. Was that today?
No, it was, Deborah forwarded it to you yesterday at 4:19. It's not a privileged memo.
That's my fault. I didn't see it so much.
In summary, in summary.
My question is covered. I apologize, but
yeah,
if we take this grant and we put in $200,000 in the runway and we use it for 5 years, it's got another 5 years useful life, and we don't use it after that, do we pay back 100% or we pay back the depreciated value, for lack of a better term?
More than likely, you would wind up paying back the full amount.
Okay.
Shelley.
I apologize, Carl. I did not see your memo come in.
Yeah, it actually from Deborah. I had forwarded it to her,
right.
And then she sent it out. So I apologize.
Okay.
If it wasn't,
We just have a lot of things like coming up to the start of the council meeting.
Right. No,
Oh.
and I apologize. This is one that we pushed out late, just in response to Counselor Stepp's question to make sure we'd fully covered it from a legal perspective as to what you guys needed to know.
Well, and I guess my question on it, and the reason I asked it to come off consent also was, I'm concerned about, we have the whole airspace study that was done, which calls for a lot of cutting and topping and trimming of trees and dealing with other things in that flight path space. Does this necessitate that be done quickly and accelerated?
No, these would not necessarily require that, although those are things that are required as, part of an operational airport. And
right, because the way it's worded, yeah.
Yeah, the Part 77 regulations, it's part of our responsibilities as an airport operator. So, we're working through all those things that have, our Meredith has done a fantastic job of, trying to identify and helping us move forward on those areas that we just need to come into compliance and also just get updated with what's been filed with CDOT and the FAA.
I'm just curious about, I don't think the neighborhood is aware of a lot of those.
We're, absolutely. And we actually are working on a draft letter regarding some of those things. And absolutely, that's going to be a community conversation out there.
Okay.
I will tell you, over the years, councils have decided to accept these grants or not based on the same questions you're asking right now. And in the last 20 years, the one constant has been that the airport has remained open.
Right.
So, you know what I mean? Like, so from my standpoint, that 10-year useful life, you have a ballot question on that I think has a likelihood of success.
Right.
That will solidify the position of the airport.
Yes.
So I view the likelihood of a closure in the next 10 years, a permanent closure, as pretty slim. I'm like everybody else.
I do too. And I'm very happy that these grants have been awarded, and I'm, looking forward to accepting those. But I guess, as far as I know, in the past 20 or 30 years that I've been here, it's never come up about, taking down trees and addressing issues around the airport. So
what I will say on that is that it does come up every time we approve development, and actually the height of buildings around it, including doing an analysis under Part 77 for Cardiff Glen and things like that, has been done and is consistently done. Without question, some of the things that grow into that easement, that
right.
Navigation easement, that's different. And conditions are different now than they were 15 years ago.
And if I may add to that, Shelley, I think your concerns coming from the airspace study that identified hazards around the airport. One of our grant guarantees that addresses that with number 4 in operation and maintenance simply says that the airport will work on addressing any kind of issues like that through the useful life of the project. So in particular, what they're looking for and are requiring is that we mark, provide any markings or lighting hazards resulting from airport conditions, including temporary conditions, and promptly notifying airmen of any conditions affecting aeronautical use at the airport. So, as long as we're making inroads into identifying where those hazards are, making that available to the public and notifying airmen as they come in, hey, be aware that we have trees at certain elevations within the flight plane. We are complying with the conditions of those grant obligations.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Paula, sorry.
Oh, thank you. I wasn't sure if you had many. One other question, Carl, on this, and I'm so sorry, but this, I'm just kind of struggling making sure that we're doing the right thing on it, taking this grant, is when it says the sponsor could become ineligible for future grant opportunities, is that just around the airport? Or
yeah,
also
it's just around the airport.
South Street, I mean,
Yeah,
so-
but without question, how we behave with regard to grant awards from the state, regardless of whether, they come from DOLA or they come from CNOT Aeronautical or any place else. Certainly how you manage those grants has an impact across. I won't say that it'll have no impact. I would argue, I could give you the legal position that, they're talking about CDOT aeronautical grants, but will that have an impact? It's much like if you don't pay your, your electric bill, your gas provider is going to require a deposit the next time around that you ask for new gas service, even though it's an unrelated utility, right? Like everything's kind of connected.
Right. Okay, thanks.
See no more questions. We will turn it over. These are resolutions. This is a resolution, 2207 for public comment. I see Mr. Merritt's hand is up. Go ahead, Dave.
Okay, good afternoon, good evening, rather, not afternoon anymore. Yes, I just urge the council to enter into these resolutions. These are important grants for the continuation of the airport operations. In fact, the fuel station has already been ordered, I believe. So let's get going with that. These same conditions are on almost all state and federal grants, NRCS, and anything else. So let's move forward in those. And I didn't get my finger in quick enough on the previous item. I just wanted to say, please go slow on that. The minimum standards, we really have not had much of a chance to review those at the Airport Commission. We were provided those just shortly before the January meeting. We really need some more time to review those. So just, give time for the airport users, everybody else to do that. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Dave. And you know what? I think I am remiss when I say, hey, during public comment for items not appearing on the agenda, then like items actually do appear on the agenda. We're like, I need to take public comment. So I'll do better on that because there are things that people might want to comment. I just assume that unless it's an ordinance or a resolution that they don't. So I apologize for that, Dave. Councilor Hershey, do you have a motion?
I was going to make a motion, Mr. Mayor, but you said that you would like the motions to be done separately. Is that correct?
If you would, please, it would be clearer on the record because they are two unrelated, or they are two separate.
Right. So I would make a motion, Mr. Mayor, and I appreciate as representative of the Airport Commission, you allow me to do that, to approve Resolution 2022-07, accepting a grant from CDOT Aeronautical for fueling systems.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
Moved by Tony, seconded by myself. All those in favor, I'm sorry, let's call the question.
Counselor Hershey,
Yes, sir.
Counselor Cow,
Yes.
Counselor Wusso,
Yes.
Counselor Stepp,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Wellman,
Yes.
and Mayor Godus.
Yes.
It's 6-0.
Okay, next item, thank you, Ryan. Next item is Resolution 2208. I feel like we've already had the conversation, so I will open this up to public comment as required. Anybody from the public can speak about this separate resolution? All right, seeing no hands, I'll bring it back for a separate motion on this.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to make a motion and I'd like to say how important, you got to maintain the runway. If we have a street in town that's not working, we need to fix it. And if we have a runway, we have to maintain it. Paula and Shelley are correct, or Shelley particularly tonight. I don't know what the future is going to be, but I guess we're going to find out. So I would make a motion to approve Resolution 2022-08, accepting grant from CDOT for the airport runway.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you.
Moved by Tony, seconded by Shelley. Charlie?
Sorry, I forgot one question. Where is this money coming from for this? I knew where it was from the fuel because we talked about that earlier. How are we going to pay for our share?
Airport money tree? No.
I can answer that one. I think we will put it on the next appropriation.
But where's it coming from?
The airport fund. It'll come from the airport fund.
And there's enough reserve in there to do that?
Yeah, we'll take we did the communication system last year. So we'll take the $100,000 that's in this year out of the budget. And then we'll appropriate this at the same time in the first supplemental that we turn in this year.
So I think your answer to my question was yes, the money's there. We just got to appropriate it.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, all those in favor say aye or raise your hand. Aye.
I think you need to take a voice vote on this one. This is a resolution.
Can we do or you want to do a real vote, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, I think Charlie would like his vote recorded. So I think, Ryan, you probably just need to do.
I apologize. This is very similar to the last one. I was mistaken. Ryan, let's have a voice vote.
Always happy. Mayor Godis,
Yes.
Counselor Hershey,
Yes, sir.
Counselor Kaut,
Yes.
Counselor Wusso,
Yes.
Counselor Stepp,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Wellman.
Yes.
On fire, 6-0.
Okay. Report from city administration.
I'm good.
I
Thank you.
can't hear you, Deborah. Deborah,
Thank you, Tony.
I can't hear you. It never gets old, Jonathan. It's like the best joke ever.
I hate to say this, but I agree, Tony. It is fantastic. Carl.
Not a lot. Just reiterating that we'll be back with a couple of memos related to the charter for the March meeting for you guys to talk about. We're going to be extraordinarily short on council members on the February 17th meeting. So from a quorum standpoint, if something comes up and you know about it ahead of time, it'd be helpful just because obviously we won't be having a meeting if we lose one of you that's still in town. So please let us know. Also, have a couple of meetings coming up in the next week. You guys are going to be probably seeing a privileged and confidential memo from me on a couple of items, and just giving you a heads up to be looking for that in your email. And other than that, thankfully we got to 8:05 and I'm good.
I would like to note for the record that there was 2 items that were added on the agenda that added 20 minutes into Talatarias. So we would have been here at 7:45 had those items not last minute been added. So I just want to make that very clear to our legal counsel.
And had you, never mind.
Okay. You know what? Thank you.
And I just want a quick comment because I know Tony's going to move to adjourn, which is fine with me. But if we have a last minute memo like yesterday afternoon, can somebody please text us in addition to emailing? One of those places, hopefully I'll see it. And it sounds like Shelley didn't see it either. Again, I'm not critical. I just like to be able to read stuff ahead of time. So anything you can do to let us know last minute stuff, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
If I remember, yes.
Mr. Mayor, before I move to adjourn, I had a question for Deborah or for you, Mr. Mayor. Steve Davis left and we haven't been meeting in person, and I hope he's not watching. If it's a surprise, I bet he is watching. But are we going to do something or say something at the next meeting, or we're not going to do anything?
The next meeting, because a lot of
because nobody's there.
And because he might not actually have any connection to the world outside a satellite phone at the bottom of the Grand Canyon. I think we should take one of the meetings in March to thoroughly embarrass him and make him feel very uncomfortable.
Well, I mean, he served on this council for almost 7 years. I think we should acknowledge that.
Absolutely. I completely agree.
Thank you. Now I will move to adjourn. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I'll second that. All right. All those in favor of adjourning, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Unless
We'll be in Carl's office shortly.
I can't hear Carl or Deborah.
I said just have to wait, Charlie. You can't. Next time.
Yeah, sure.